to the 30th, 5 to the 30th, and 11 days, yeah. 11 days, because it's on a Friday night. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So it was 10 days ago. Yeah, on the cusp of Libra, yeah. And all of my planets and ascendants and all that, most of that stuff's in either Libra or Taurus. And I only know that because I had a friend in college, Lorraine, who was a professional astrologer, and she did the whole chart. And even though it is
Yeah, okay. So, comunque, oh wait, that's, so.
Oh, I guess I gotta crank it up again.
Ok. Buonasera. Quindi, sì, quest'anno sono andata in Italia con una famiglia americana, ho fatto la guida turistica a Cicerone. Perché il figlio di questa famiglia ha fatto il suo bar mitzvah, è una festa ebrea quando un ragazzo o una ragazza diventa un uomo, un adulto nella religione ebrea. Quindi lui, il figlio ha voluto andare in Italia perché gli ebrei quando hanno c'è qualcosa che si chiama a birthright, cioè che vuol dire che a 18 anni.
Come?
A birthright. Birthright. When a child in the Jewish religion is 18, he becomes
Oh, okay.
that young people apparently, which I had learned that Jewish people when they turn 18 they get a free paid trip to Israel. It's called the birthright, and I didn't know about this, but this family I brought to Italy, the son wanted to go to Italy for his bar mitzvah, and because apparently he's going to get a free, all expenses paid trip to Israel anyway as part of his birthright.
Yeah.
So the parents said, the boy said, well, since I get a free trip to Israel, I would really like to go to Italy. So
he wants to go from Italy to Israel rather than from the United States to Israel.
Right. So that's why we went to Italy, and I was the tour guide, and that's it. So it was interesting. It was very interesting. We went to Rome and Florence and Firenze, yep, and Venice and Venezia, Milano, and Pisa. I got to go to the top of the Leaning Tower, and then right after the Pope comes to the country.
But what about this? I've heard that I've been to Pisa, and it was decades ago,
right?
But I've heard that when you walk around the town of Pisa,
right?
First of all, you have to walk around in a circle, and secondly, the entire interior of the circle is covered with cheese.
Oh.
And with gravy, with the sauce.
Oh, it's pizza! Ha ha ha!
No, it isn't.
Pizza is with the doppia Z, the two Z's. Pizza is with one S.
And I also heard that if you walk around Pisa with a knife and a fork in your hand, people give you all kinds of trouble.
But no, I'm sure. But it's interesting that you would think you get off the train in Pisa and the signs, it's not really that well marketed. you'd think with a tourist attraction that big that they'd have better directions, but you get off the train and you really, I mean, it's not, the signs aren't that great.
They don't even say it's hey, welcome to Pisa.
No, you just kind of just have to keep walking and following people and hope that, eventually.
And when you see this building that's sort of like this, that means then you know you're in Pisa.
And it's interesting because I was talking to someone and we were saying how, in Italy, things aren't, they kind of make you look for things. Things aren't as in your face. Whereas here, if you go to a museum, and let's say, what would be the star attraction of a museum? Like something that you go to, if you go to the MoMA, right, Museum of Modern Art, and they have a star attraction.
They usually have some particular painter or some particular artist which is featured.
Right, exactly.
During that time.
And it's in your face, and you walk in and you see it. Whereas in Italy, it's like, it's kind of hidden and it's not, they make you look for it. It's not as in your face, which is kind of like European cinema. I think a lot of European stuff, if you watch European cinema or Italian films, they don't have like this Hollywood ending, where everything ends up wonderful. There, like, you could have a Fellini film or a Marcello Mastroianni film, and it's like the movie kind of ends, and you have that feeling in your stomach of angst, like, now what? No questions are answered. And did you ever see the movie Up in the Air with George Clooney?
No, I did not.
Okay, well, anyway, it's that kind of a feeling that it didn't have that Hollywood ending where everything finishes perfect and everyone's happy.
You want resolution in a film. At least, I guess most moviegoers do. But a lot of European
films have no resolution.
Huh.
And it's interesting because they're okay with that. But I think in all movies here, there's resolution and...
So you don't have... So in Italy, you're not gonna find a guy walking around with a red and white striped shirt and one of those hats on and those black glasses. There's no Where's Waldo in?
No, I don't think so. But you will see red and white striped shirts in Venice, the gondoliere.
Oh, the gondoliers. Yeah, sure, they wear the red and white striped shirts.
Black and white and red and white. That's where you will see. And maybe a straw hat. Maybe. Okay. That's the only place you'll see red and white.
Singing Santa Lucia, right?
Right.
Hark how the angels cry, joyously
if you
ever
pay
nigh.
him enough. If you pay him enough, yeah. Right. No, it's true. So, that was my experience. Yeah, and but it's different culturally. I think it's important to see things.
Yeah.
And so then I come home, and then the Pope comes to visit, and it's funny talking about how this visit has affected, my
You heard the speech, didn't you? The first three words in his speech when he talked in front of the United Nations is "Como es Emily?"
Yeah, no, I missed that. But I do chair massage in the city. I remember I was in Queens the week before.
Yeah.
The Pope was coming, and there were signs on the highway saying, "Gridlock traffic warning." The UN Congress and the Pope, and use mass transit. Yeah. So the following week, I had a chair massage event at FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology.
Yep.
So I took the super early train in. Like the 6 o'clock train, even though my job started at noon because I didn't know what to expect. And then I get there.
It gives you time to, walk around and, see stuff. So you can gradually kind of work into what you're going to do.
Exactly, which I usually do anyway to, get situated. And my aunt works at FIT, so I met up with her, which was really weird because we just coincidentally happened to bump into each other.
No, not even planned?
I told her I was coming in, but when I had arrived, I hadn't told her I was there yet. And she just happened to be, we met right outside the school. It was really weird. So, but what was my point was that I got to Grand Central and there were no taxis coming down Lexington Avenue because of the shutdown. They shut down 42nd, Grand Central, Lexington Avenue because of the UN Congress. So, So here I had my massage chair, and the taxi stand, the guy there was saying to us, there was a long line of people, and he said, the taxis here are few and far between, and he says, I really recommend taking mass transit, a subway. And I'm like, I have my massage chair, And then there was, a family behind me, and this guy.
That's not light either.
No, exactly. I mean, I had wheels, and this guy behind me is like, well, my wife has to have her procedure done at NYU. And then I felt guilty, and I'm like, you know what? I said, you take the next taxi. I'll just take a subway. So I did end up taking the subway, and it all worked out okay. But it's just amazing how so much was going on in the city last week. I don't know what was going on at the UN Congress. Do you know what that was about? Does anyone know what they were talking about?
The UN? The United Nations?
Yeah.
The Pope talked to them about the world issues, and pretty much told them that all the countries that are socialist are doing the right thing, and all the countries that aren't are doing the wrong thing. Pretty much.
Right.
The guy's a socialist. I mean, if you take the Pope, take his cape off, and age him about 20 years, you got Bernie Sanders. You got him. That's it. That's it. The Pope and Bernie Sanders. I mean, they're like long lost cousins.
And my mom is saying that his views are pretty advanced with this Pope, but as far as women, he still doesn't put women up that high, compared to other. Still.
They never will. They never will until first of all they allow women to be priests, because there's no reason why women shouldn't be priests. So why not? Pope, this is a shout out to you.
Yeah. Why?
Priests. Why not priests?
Yeah. Why can't women be priests?
And plaudits. I mean, he says a lot of good stuff. He's progressive. He understands apparently understands the teachings of Jesus Christ a lot better than a lot of other not just Catholics but Italians, or especially that last Pope we had, the one that they called Pope Nazi the First, the one that was from Germany, Pope Benedictine.
Yes, that's right.
Benedict, Pope Benedict.
Exactly, the ex-Nazi. Yeah,
the one that they'd been a Hitler Youth, and that's a rough grounds to cover for a guy that. They want to make a pope out of. I mean, they couldn't find a German that was born post Holocaust.
No, I guess apparently not. Oh, well, it's hard to beat the one before him, Pope John Paul.
Oh, excellent Pope.
Yeah.
Very good guy.
Yeah.
Good guy.
So he was like the in between.
Yeah, John Paul II. Yeah.
Well, both popes are living in the Vatican now. The old pope and the new pope.
That's got to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
They're going to the bathroom. They're coming down the hall headed for the bathroom at the same time.
Right.
In the middle of the night, and there's this guy that seems to have different opinions about a lot of stuff.
Thanks.
I mean, what do they talk about? I mean, will they both forget that they speak Italian and jive into their native language? Pope Francis with Argentinian with Spanish, and Pope Benedict launches off into German, and they're and it's like the Tower of Babel. Nobody knows what the other guy is saying, and and they just pretend like they can't understand each other. So,
it's interesting because from when I went on a tour of the Vatican, my tour guide was saying that neither of them live in the papal apartments. And they both wander around the Vatican, and maybe they don't speak to each other.
That would
maybe.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'd like to be an Italian fly on the wall, and listen in on some conversations that they have.
They say, and for this guide was telling us that the new pope he wanders off without telling security because he has bodyguards, and then they'll lose the pope, and all the security guards, are just.
Oh my God! Where's the Pope?
And they'll find him.
¿Qué es el Papa? ¿Dónde es el Papa en español? ¿Dónde? En español, ¿dónde es? ¿Dónde es el Papa?
Then they say they'll find him with his Argentina hoodie sweatshirt on, and out wandering around the city.
Better not wander around the United States wearing a hoodie. That could be dangerous, wearing a hoodie in the United States. You know what they say about people that wear
hoodies
in the United States?
Right, exactly.
Watch out. The neighborhood watches out. Don't wear your hoodie.
Oh my gosh. But it's interesting. The Pope and how we're saying that, women can be priests, and no, it's an interesting time. went, like I went to see the Ultima Cena. It was this, talking about women in the church, the Catholic Church. And it's Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. It's a famous painting,
You got the 13 of them, and one of them,
right?
Of course, that's the Dan Brown novel turned into a movie. That the one of them that kind of looks a bit effeminate,
exactly,
is actually Mary Magdalene.
That's what. But if you ask any of these guides, they're like, no. They can't believe that it could actually be. They're like, it's not a woman. They're like, everyone says it could be Mary Magdalene. She looks very effeminate, but they said no. Leonardo da Vinci, back in the day, he portrayed young men with hairless faces, and older men with beards. So any one person that looked effeminate, it was really a young man.
Okay.
But they refused to acknowledge they could possibly have been a woman disciple at the table with Jesus.
But here's the thing: what's worse? Because they talk about the marriage.
Oh.
The marriage, which would be worse for Jesus to have been married to Mary Magdalene,
right,
or to some young dude?
No, it's true. Or hanging out with a prostitute.
This is my young associate, Gaia. No, not Gaia. Gaia, not Gaia.
Or
Gaia.
Or acknowledging she was a woman and having her be a prostitute, right? So, like back then, a woman either had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was Mary Magdalene? Did anyone ever, couldn't be a young man, so we have to make her. So what were women? That's another question. Like if women couldn't be priests, they'd have to be prostitutes or there wasn't a lot Virgin Mary.
Exactly, there weren't a lot of job openings for different job opportunities for young women.
Right.
Either they could latch onto a man and be supported, or else they'd have to. If they're supporting themselves, there are not a lot of opportunities out there.
No, it's true, and look at these women. Then you go into, women who, probably got married back then, and if you were an unmarried woman, you were probably deemed a witch. But I don't know when the witch trials, if that was, back then too, if they were stoning women or burning women at the stake, or Joan of Arc.
That's the Protestant, the more conservative Protestant religions that did that. I don't know. I guess they had. They had a grudge against women further back in those days, but I don't know if they hanged them or burned them at the stake or whatever.
Stoned them.
Stoned to death.
Wasn't there one about when Jesus said before you cast the first who's going to cast the first stone,
be sinless among ye, yeah.
Right. So maybe they were stoning people back then.
That was another way of executing people.
Right.
Of course, not crucifixion, obviously, but stoning to death. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. So
Pope Francis from the Franciscan order.
The one we have now, the present day Pope.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Franciscan order? How that differs from other Catholic orders?
Sure. I mean, I know from being in Assisi, because I lived in Perugia, and they always have to wear their, they take vows of poverty. They wear their sandals, even in, the Birkenstock sandals, even in the deep cold of winter, I remember being on a train and seeing these monks, and even though it's freezing cold, they still have to wear their brown... whatever you call their brown, what would you call it, cloak, robes,
they have
their sandals.
The robe, the brown robe.
And then they used to, shave their head in a funny way,
Are they the ones that had, just the center of...
I think so, and then the rim of hair.
And just the round, just the part of it, the round...
And they were supposed to be, extreme pacifists. Even if they were, being beaten up, they could never fight back. And they were, it was just about,
Very much like Buddhists in the sense that Buddhists won't step on an ant,
right?
Because it's just the wrong thing to do in their eyes.
And I think St. Francis was he did the prayer for the animals, or he was something about. They always had St. Francis with Sister Chiara or St. Clara, you always had the two together.
Yeah,
and I think. For some reason, I think St. Francis was for the animals or something. They always associate him with being a, or maybe, I don't know.
Huh. So maybe Dr. Dolittle is based on the Franciscan order.
It's possible, but yeah, I think the Franciscan, they take the vow of poverty, and because that's what St. Francis did, I think. Kind of like Buddha. It's funny that you said that, you know, like coming from wealth, giving up all your worldly goods.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I don't know if it's so unusual that different philosophies and religions would have, you know, similar takes on life. It doesn't seem all that far-fetched.
Right.
But the Franciscans and Buddhists would both take that vow of having no worldly possessions
well, Assisi is a very, you know, they say, where St. Francis of Assisi from that area, and they say it's one of the most, like, peaceful, spiritual places in the world, and people come.
Where is Assisi in Italy geographically?
Well, you have Perugia and Umbria. It's in Umbria, and I think it's actually considered part of the city of Perugia. Like, you have the main city, and then little towns which are frazione, or like little, how would you... So it's part of the, like, you know, Bethel is part of the greater Danbury area.
Used to be, yeah.
So Assisi would be like part of the greater area of Perugia.
Perugia, yeah.
Provincia, in the province of.
Okay. Now, is that northern, central, or southern Italy? Sicily?
Central, I would say, definitely.
So it kind of in this area, Rome's kind of centralized in Italy, at least on the east coast, sort of halfway up.
Well, Umbria is they call it the green heart, the cuore verde, because it's the one region in Italy that's completely landlocked. It's not, since Italy's a peninsula. Yeah, it doesn't touch the sea at all.
And it's not really that. I guess it's wider than, say, Florida. And Florida has some areas in the center that are nowhere near the ocean. Or the Gulf.
It has lakes, but no sea. Doesn't touch any sea. So seas a lot, and it's a lot of hill towns. A lot of towns built in the hills. So when you go to Assisi, you walk up and down like hills, really, and so it's in the middle, central. Okay. You have like Tuscany, Umbria, and the Marche region. It's a little bit of maybe an hour and a half north of Rome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But as far as the Franciscan monks, what do I know about them? They just, they take vows of poverty. They help the poor, which I guess all monks do. I don't know if they're cloistered or live in solitude. I don't know about that.
Well, I know that if being an aficionado of the Twilight Zone,
right?
I know that they're always on the outlook for devious characters that go around howling like wolves, because there was that Twilight Zone episode where the monks, I think it was called Howling Man.
Okay.
And it starts off with a guy traveling through the countryside, and it's the weather's terrible out, and he seeks refuge at a place that's run by monks.
Ah.
And he goes, they let him in the front. Well, they try to chase him away because they don't. But he just begs if he can come in for a while until the rain lets up. And he gets inside, and the first thing that happens, he hears this, "How?"
And where's this?
It's somewhere in Central Europe. I don't think it's in Italy, but it's a cloister. Is it called a cloister?
Right, where they're in like seclusion, kind of. Yeah.
And so they tell him, whatever you do, don't go near that door over there.
Right.
And of course, the first thing he does when they all go to bed is he goes over to the door and because he's curious.
Right.
And there's a guy inside there, and he's begging the guy, look, could you please just let me out? These crazy monks have me captive.
Right.
And they won't let me out. They're nuts. They've made me a captive, and I'm stranded here. And the guy happens to notice that all the guy has inside the room has to do is reach out through the between the bars, which are like this far apart, and go like this, and he could lift up the thing that's keeping him from getting out. But for some reason he can't do that. It has to be somebody else that lets him out. And finally, through his wiles, this guy gets the one that's there overnight to lift up the thing. The guy automatically comes out, and you see him change from this scruffy-looking guy into this really dapper-looking, like a devil almost. He looks like a devil.
Interesting.
He charges, he walks, he just pushes past the guy, and then he's off, and he's out, and next thing you know, the atomic bomb is being dropped somewhere, and it's
interesting.
And the thrust of the story is that at the end of the show, at the end of that story, this guy, it's been his job, because he let him out, to trap him. He's trapped him. He's got him locked in a room, and here comes the cleaning lady for some reason to clean the apartment. And he says, "Whatever you do, don't open that door."
Right, of course.
And needless to say, what she does is she opens the door,
exactly.
and bada bing, the guy's out again, and he's gonna wreak havoc again.
It's like Bluebeard, right? Like, or Pandora's, it's like, whatever
Pandora's
you do,
box.
don't open that,
Yeah. So anyway, that's the Twilight Zone. So something in that maybe this is sort of like, this sort of is following the
St. Francis?
The monks. They probably have some guy in a room somewhere, and don't anybody ever let that guy out. So, Perugia.
Okay, yeah. I used to
So you're down in New York City, and
all right.
and the Pope's down there.
Right.
Or actually, were you there when he was there?
Well, I was there. I didn't see. I was in the city when the UN. I guess apparently the Pope might have been there, because I just remember 42nd Street and they shut down Midtown because near the.
Come and meet.
They shut down
dancing
Midtown.
Pope.
There were no taxis running on Lexington Avenue and 42nd Street because of the UN, and it just messed everything up. And when I finally did take a taxi back to the train station, I got stuck.
Yeah, in traffic, and the meter's running.
Exactly. That's
why the taxis aren't running, because all they're going to get is grief from the riders saying, can't you take a left here and go 4 blocks that way? No, because you can't, because everybody else is doing that too.
Exactly. So I was just, I didn't care anymore. Just get me home. Yeah. So, but hopefully things are going to be better, and the less I have to go into the city, the better. But anyway.
So while you're gone, we have these 2 guys on.
Yes.
And they came on to talk about Bernie Sanders. And
communism or socialism. Yeah,
well, we can't say it's not communism. Because communism is more of a political thing where you although, I forget who it was. Maybe it was Donald Trump or some other idiot that said, it's an alleged quote from Nikita Khrushchev. That we're not gonna try to force communism on them right off the bat. We'll give them little dabs of socialism and ease them into it. Now, whether he said that or not, your guess is as good as mine. And, people make up things all the time.
Yeah.
About these quotes from people like Nikita Khrushchev.
Well, Ronald Reagan used to scare people about.
Oh my God! Yes.
Communism or socialism.
God, yeah. Oh my, yeah. He's
But go on. Okay, so
they came on. They came on, and we're talking about socialism. We're talking about Bernie Sanders, and we had an interesting conversation. We had a bit of disagreement about the capital, the tax rate on stock trades, where I had thought that when you sold stock, you paid at the capital rate gain, which I think is 15%. But one of the guests said, no, actually, it's you pay at the whatever your tax rate is, which might be as much as 35% or 39%.
Huh. Interesting.
Must be Lara, Whistling Wizard.
Yeah, maybe.
Somebody from Ohio. Okay. So.
So did these 2 gentlemen you had on, did they talk about socialism in Europe? Were they aware of other countries that had socialist practices?
They didn't know as much about Europe as they did about the socialist practices that have been in place in America for a long time, since since the Great Depression, when we brought in Social Security but even further back than that, obviously, since about 115 years now.
Right.
We've had public education.
Right.
Which is socialist. It's a guarantee that every child deserves an education.
Right.
And we all pay for that collectively, and the screen's off.
Well, I don't know why they can't
Just
have...
keep on talking.
I don't see why, if we can have free public education, why doesn't it continue on to college?
Yeah, why not? I mean, gosh, why not? Why not just keep it going? Yeah.
Or healthcare.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. It just makes sense that everybody would get the basics and.
Right. And then you don't start out life like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, you know?
Yeah, and like in your dad's case, I mean, it's not in his case, but in younger doctors' cases, they come out of the medical school and they're owing literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, and it puts them kind of behind the eight ball to begin with, and it takes a lot of the pleasure out of doing a profession when you start off deeply in debt.
And then healthcare becomes all about money and not about, what it should be about, which is, taking care of people.
Yeah, providing people with keeping people healthy.
Right.
Basic health care to provide people with the things that keep them healthy.
Right.
So.
No, it's true, and I was talking to someone about that today, how... I was talking to someone today who was in the hospital, and he said that he was actually really happy with the care he received at Danbury Hospital, and that some of the healthcare workers were saying that some of the patients weren't that nice to, and he's saying, people, instead of, they're just,
Remind me to call Basil later.
Okay, just saying that I think that healthcare should be people should allow healthcare workers to help them, and both taking part in the healing process instead of possibly.
You're still cranking, right?
The first one was done. We're still recording that.
Yeah. Okay. That's
All
fine.
right.
Okay.
I can edit it later.
All right. So I just think.
Yeah.
I think. Instead, and working in any kind, when you work with people and customer service or whatever, I mean, they should be appreciating the help that they're receiving instead of maybe being entitled or demanding.
It seems like,
saying.
It seems like, and people do go into the medical profession most of the time, and for almost 100% for the right reasons. They go in there because they see an opportunity to make someone's life a little bit better. They're paying it forward because. One day, they're going to be, they could very well be in that position and counting on other people to take care of them.
And it's interesting because I think when you make everything, being bought and sold and, everything in industry, because I remember being in college and I'd gone to a private university and there were students in my classes that would go right up to the professors and say, you better give me an A because I'm paying your salary. Whereas I think if education were paid for by the state, like kids couldn't go up to the teachers and say, you better give me an A because I'm paying your salary.
Yeah, teachers could say, sit down and shut up.
Exactly. So once
you got a reasonable question, a reasonable comment, we're open for that. But otherwise,
once you allow something to be bought or sold, basically you're a slave of whoever's paying you.
Yeah.
So I think we just, it's get that out of the way, and then you get down to what it's really about: education, learning, healthcare, medicine, taking care of people. But once you make it a commodity and bought and sold, it just, I don't know, it changes the playing field. The haves and the have-nots, and who's in the power, and who's on
the inside and who's on the outside.
Right, exactly. It's just a way of separating people, So maybe if you make everyone equal, then no one's better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And, I just had that epiphany right now. It's like, wow, it's true. Once you make anything kind of, whether it's education or healthcare, I'm paying you, so you better make me better or else, know. Or else
commercialize it, you put a price tag on it, and then it becomes less of there's less free giving and more people that are paying, or whose parents are paying. Provides them more of a sense of ownership.
And exactly, and this person I was working with, this patient I was working with today was saying, you would think that if someone's in a situation where someone is helping you and wants to help you get better, you would think that you'd be nice to them because this person's like, basically like life or death, you know, they're helping me get better. Why would I want to be mean or nasty? Or, you know, I would want to be nice to them so they help me, you know. Or even
it seems to make sense.
Yeah, it seems to make sense, but yeah. Oh, so yeah, I was in the city when the Pope was there, and that's over with. I guess he's gone back to Italy, the Vatican now. And, what else is going on?
What about these red shoes that he wears? He said especially made red shoes.
Huh?
That are made by Prada, the fashion designer.
Really?
And they're red and they're pointy toed and they're kind of, and they've got some kind of special stitching in them and all that, and they're
I'm
like
shocked.
slippers and they're fat. And I'm thinking about a movie that I saw, The Devil Wears Prada.
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, what's this all about? Where
I know, right?
The Devil Wears Prada, and on the other hand, here's all of the popes wearing Prada on their feet.
Well, you know, that's because I would have thought this Pope, he seems to kind of be the antithesis of that. Like, he's all about, like, giving up lunch appointments with high officials to eat with homeless people, you know. I mean, and then, like, when he was in Italy, he drove a Kia, and when he was in, you know, in America, I don't know what kind of car he drove, but I didn't think he'd be wearing Prada.
I think it was a Fiat, because that's the Italian car.
But I didn't hear about him wearing Prada. That's very interesting.
Apparently they all do. They all, for, I don't know, as long as Prada's been around. And they all wear these red fashion designer slippers that... And then this movie comes out, The Devil Wears Prada. Now, is there a message in that or what? And I didn't like that movie, quite frankly. I mean, it's just...
Why?
Because the boss was so mean, and at the same time she was very fragile.
Yeah, Meryl Streep was really good in that role.
Yeah, she really played it both ways.
You really felt, it's true.
You felt for her angst,
right?
And then she'd do something, and you say to yourself, "Screw her."
Yeah.
Enough of the feeling for her angst. She's just nasty.
But then you realize she's you know. That's all she has is her, you know. Yeah. Nothing else.
And then the 18th husband dumps her, and you know, it's just, you know.
Yeah. No.
Later, Basil.
No. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of stuff coming out. Like, I saw that movie Black Mass with Johnny Depp, and he played the Irish mobster in Boston, like in the mid 70s to the 80s. And it's when it was at war, kind of between the black mob and the Italian in Boston, the Irish mob and the Italian mob, and how the not the IRS, the FBI, the FBI was using all the people in the FBI and the cops were all Irish, and then they were kind of all helping each other out. So they sided. They had made an alliance. They call it between
the two mobs.
Oh no, the FBI.
Oh, between
the
police and the
Irish mob.
And the Irish mob,
because they all started out as street kids, you know, made good, and who became the politician, who became in the FBI, and then so they made an alliance with the Irish mob guy. This guy in the FBI, he says, if you kind of give us information on the Italian mob, then we can get rid of the Italian mob. But in getting rid of the Italian mob, that they let the Irish mob guy become the super power, and kind of let him get away with everything just in order to get information, to destroy the Italians.
So I figured it was better to wipe out one of the two mobs and let one of them survive and prosper than to try to wipe out both of them. So, and it was just funny because like the mob guys would do all these horrible, unspeakable things, and then they'd go to church, and somehow it was all okay. As long as they go to confession. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Father said, yeah, you're forgiven. Yeah, whatever. Whatever, don't worry about it.
Oh.
Whatever.
So,
and yet the many of the Irish And I guess presumably most of the Catholic,
Right.
and the Italians are all Catholics.
Right, exactly.
So they got the church that's
Yeah.
as a bond and at the same time as a wedge.
Yeah, it was just really interesting because, my dad's roots are Italian and my mom's, half Irish, half Italian, and it's just, but they're both Catholic, so that's that common bond that they share. And, but yeah, it was interesting to think that, about I guess we were just talking about the church and how,
Yeah.
these things that go on. And this is up in like the 70s and the 80s. It wasn't that long ago.
No.
How, and who knows if that stuff still goes on. I don't know. Yeah, interesting. But, so Black Mass, Boston.
And this is Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp, yep. And it was unusual. He'd never to see him play a character like that.
Well, it's a lot of different characters.
Yeah, I'll
really
say.
Does a lot of quite a variety of characters.
Yeah. And I had never been a big mob movie. I've never really seen Goodfellas or any of those. Although people have told me, oh my God, you have to see these movies. But I've never really been. Not that I'm a big.
I'm the only person I know that when somebody says Robert De Niro, I go, eh.
Yeah. Who's in The Intern, by the way? I've
big
heard.
deal.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good actor, but so big deal.
Right.
So I like the Godfather films, at least the first two.
Right.
Which
Al
I guess
Pacino, Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Who else was in those?
And both films won Academy Awards,
Yeah.
which is rare for a follow-up film.
Right.
I mean, who can recall Jaws 2 or Jaws 3
Right,
or Jaws
exactly.
25 or Jaws 47?
Right.
They all stink. The first one was great and the rest of them were worthless. But The Godfather,
Right.
you
One
got
and two.
1 and 2,
Yeah.
both great films.
Number 3 was kind of bad, but 1
Yeah.
and 2 were good.
Yeah, 3 wasn't much, but for the first two to be really interesting films.
Yeah, no, I know. Definitely. Who was the other
Vito,
one?
wasn't it De Niro that played Vito Corleone in the follow-up?
Who's the one who played the father? Oh, he was in Guys and Dolls. What was his name? Marlon Brando.
Oh, Brando, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, The Godfather. Good films.
Good actor, yeah.
But it's just interesting, how both these Italians, Irish, Catholic Church, and all this stuff that goes on. And
so how do the Caribbeans come into this? How do they fit into all this? I mean, they've got their own, they've got their own little niche in the, there's some gangsters amongst them too.
Oh, in the Caribbeans? Oh, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Folks in America that are of Caribbean descent. And of course, just like Italians and just like Irish and just like any other nationality,
Right.
99% of them are just regular, good, hard-working folks. But you get the element that are trying to take the easy way out,
Right.
and make money and ascend to get ahead in the world by doing devious things.
And what can prevent that from happening? Like education, like getting people off the streets. I mean,
Yeah, give them alternatives,
yeah.
and then you can cut down the bad apples from 1% down to maybe 1/10%.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a few, but it's better. You're right. It's better to have educational opportunities that allow people to
give people an opportunity
to do something constructive with their life.
And it's interesting because there was that film Precious about the girl.
Oh yeah.
And she was in a family where the mother was on welfare and they lived in the city.
Yep.
And she wanted to go to school and she was, smart. And then the mother actually didn't want her to go to school. So you could have, because she said, I can't let you go to school because then I won't get my benefits. And, so then you could have situations where people might want to have the opportunity and then they're still prevented from.
Parents go through this. And there's
Right.
also the the fear in parents that if their kids get to be too much smarter than them or too much better
Right.
educated than them, then that'll make the parents feel lesser.
Right?
So it's a tough.
Yeah.
it's a tough thing that parents go through. On the one hand, they want their kids to be
Right.
educated and successful, but on the other hand, they have a fear of that.
Or maybe some kids are afraid of surpassing their parents because they feel...
The dynamics of the family, sure,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. But my cousin, she's a social worker in New York, and she's
Yeah.
works with a lot of these families, you know, trying to get kids off of welfare or, you know, keep them in school.
And I guess all you can look at is, look for those
Right.
small successes. It doesn't have to be everyone, and it doesn't have to be everybody being a tremendous success, but every little incremental
Right.
improvement you put into people's lives is worthy of note.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you take out of a job like that. You feel some comfort. It's the reverse of when we go to school,
Right.
and you know that every teacher you have is not going to be a great teacher.
Of course.
It just can't.
Right.
There have to be. It's a rainbow. There have to be the lousy ones. There have to be the average ones, and there has to be that occasional good one. But even to have that one exceptional teacher that makes a big effect on your life,
Right.
that has
Exactly.
a powerful effect on your life, is the one that is that one special teacher that you remember.
You know, I was just having this discussion with my mom. We go walking in the mornings, and we were saying how you never know. I bet a teacher never knows what impact they can have on their student. I'm like, maybe we impact people in ways that we'll never know.
That's true
Yeah.
because you may one day have a child, a young adult at that point, come back to visit their first, second, third, whatever
Right.
grade teacher, and tell them
Right.
what a marvelous impact that teacher had on your life.
Right. Exactly.
But you don't know it until it's time. You don't see that. You don't see that unwinding, that evolution of the
Yeah.
student beyond when they leave your classroom to go on to
Exactly.
another classroom.
I mean, do you have teachers that you wish you could go back to and say, you know, you had a great impact on my life? I mean, but you never had a chance to?
Ruth Calderwood.
What grade did you have her for?
I was in Ruth Calderwood's class the moment that John Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, wow.
Fourth grade.
Wow.
Fifth grade. One or the other thing. Fifth grade. Yeah, it was fifth grade when he was killed. And the principal came from classroom to classroom and told each classroom that the president had been shot and killed, and we were going to be let out of school early.
Wow.
And we all got let out of school, and most of us actually walked. I lived about a half a mile away from school, in Riverside School in Greenwich. And walked home, and then, of course, immediately turned on the television and spent the whole weekend. It was on a Friday, so he spent the whole weekend watching the events unfold. But Ruth Calderwood very much affected me afterwards. She kind of walked us through the whole agonizing thing in the weeks after then, and I really appreciated what she did. Did she ever know how she affected any of us? I don't know. She may have.
Right.
But I never thought to go back and thank her. But years later, I wish I could have.
And just based on the kind of person that she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we can have such impact on people just based on who we are, and not necessarily have to, quote unquote, like do anything, you know, just by being who we are.
Creating a comfort zone.
Exactly. And
Because kids need, okay, we have a certain comfort zone at home to some degree, some more than others.
Right.
But there have to be comfort zones outside of the home.
Exactly.
For a lot of kids, there has to be a huge comfort zone outside of the home, because for a lot of kids, there is not a comfort zone in the house. You just, we aren't blessed with marvelous parents, and parents that had any idea how to be parents. So,
right.
But it's
yeah, it's interesting as a healer. I think part of what I do, or any kind of a healer or therapist, is just creating that comfort zone, and allowing the healing to take place, because essentially we heal ourselves.
You've talked about that, how you just create the environment, and then people will heal themselves.
Yeah.
They'll take what they like. think of your
Right.
your office as being a classroom.
Right.
You're
Yes.
learning. The person's learning and gaining a little bit of knowledge
Right.
in the classroom, but you spend most of your time outside of the classroom.
Right. Right.
So you've got to use the classroom as a springboard
Yeah.
to do further study and do
Right.
whatever exercises you provide for them to do
Exactly.
to augment what you do and to help them heal themselves.
Yeah. And even in teaching, I mean, you provide a classroom, the teacher teaches, and then as a student, you have to do your part too.
Yeah.
You know, study and do your homework, and it's a two-way, anything's really a two-way process.
Yeah.
Healthcare, teaching, education, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of the teachers that meant a lot to me were, you know, in times in my life when I did go through tough times, the teachers that were the most, you know, sympathetic and to what I was going through, and knowing that they were there for me, and you know.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the teachers I remember, the people anyway.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So
You know what the Socratic method is, correct?
the Socrates. No, tell me, what is
Well,
it?
Socratic method it's a method of teaching whereby you don't just ba 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 the students
Right.
write down notes. In the Socratic method of education, the teacher is more often asking questions and bringing out thoughts from the students rather
Interesting.
than providing them with facts. The teacher is stimulating them, motivating them
Right.
to look elsewhere, to do outside reading,
Right. Right.
to do things, to take an interest in a subject matter, and to do their own education.
Right.
And the teacher evokes, asks. The teacher's doing more asking than they are
Right.
speaking, and that's the Socratic method of education. I always preferred that because it puts the burden on the student.
Yeah, exactly.
And provides a stimulus for the student to find what they find interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Because in answering questions, in order to answer a question, you have to prove that you actually understand it.
Yeah, you have to do a
Yeah.
little thinking rather than just digesting and
Right.
and spitting back.
Exactly, repeating what you read or heard. So so you've taught.
Yeah,
So is that the method that you would use?
it's yeah. I only taught for 3 years Title I reading in Florida, and then graciously the state of Florida changed the educational system, and I taught in a school for juvenile delinquents, and thankfully we loved the job.
Right.
But Debbie and I hated Florida.
Right,
The bugs, the humidity.
Right.
We were out in this little inky-dink town in the center of nowhere.
Right.
The town was so small that every phone in the town, and this is back in the day when you only had landlines.
Right.
But every phone had not just the first 3 digits, but every phone had the first same number of the four number part at the end. That's how. So it had to be fewer than 10,000 phones in this entire calling area. So that's how small the area was.
Wow.
But and we just hated it, and we were Yankees, which was not helpful because it was in rural Florida.
Right.
And so it was, as I say, the job was great, but thankfully they changed the laws and they went to more community-based programs for the kids. So they had to be closer to home. They couldn't be in this incarcerated school. So they gave us an option of, they changed the school over from ages like 8 to 20 from all over.
Wow.
To minimum security prison for adult males aged 20 to 25, and they said you can either have basically the same job here, or we'll have to lay you off. And I guess stop right there, lay me off. We're going back to Connecticut. Thank you. And by then I had a daughter, so I got my enjoyment out of my teaching enjoyment was in my own home.
Wow.
Because of course kids learn a lot more in their home.
Right.
Than they do in the school because they spend more time at home.
Right.
So it's only natural that they would learn a lot more in the home than in the classroom.
So what would juvenile delinquents tend to be incarcerated for? I'm just curious.
We had kids that were everything from runaway to murder. There were a
Really?
few murderers, not too many of them.
Between the ages of 8 and 20?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And the kids were, as I say, a lot of them were very far flung. There were 100, 200. Some of them were from the Northeast that had run away.
Wow.
So a lot of them were hundreds of miles from home, and the parents either couldn't take the time to see them, or just didn't want to waste their time seeing their own kids. So by putting them more into more community-based programs, it put more of a burden on the parents to be involved in their kids' lives,
So
which is good. Which I think was good.
Would they be in foster homes?
No, they would put them in group homes.
Wow.
So they went more to a group home basis, and of course the worst of the worst would be in prison.
Of course.
But the rest of them would be in group homes, and it was a good thing. But it was the opportunity to get the heck out of Florida and come back to Connecticut.
What an experience.
It was interesting.
Huh. You've led quite a life.
And we were talking about, we only have a little bit more time, but we were talking about, we were watching Rich Frascone's show before, and he had this grilling by right-wingers in Congress grilling the head of Planned Parenthood, president of Planned Parenthood, and apparently they had this video which shows what they claim to be an abortion, when in fact it's a miscarriage. Oh. And very big difference between a miscarriage and abortion. Miscarriage is a spontaneous thing. It happens. There's nothing you can do to stop it.
Exactly.
But they play off this miscarriage. A woman has a miscarriage, and they pretend that it's an abortion for the purpose of trying to discredit Planned Parenthood. So while we were in Florida, Debbie and I, shout out Debbie, we became pregnant, and then Debbie miscarried. We miscarried. We lost twins, and this is down in Florida. And it was a horrible thing for us. And this is back in when you were born, 76.
Wow.
76. And the twins died, and we had no idea how common it was to have a miscarriage.
Right, exactly.
We thought nobody in the hospital gave us any clue about this, so we thought we were the only people that this ever happened to.
Right, and no one talks about it here.
Yeah, no one talked about it. No one gave us any sense of, it's a horrible thing, but it happens. You have to go back and when you're ready, try again.
Yeah.
But so we eventually did, and Kimberly was born in 1977. But it was just a very, very horrible experience in the hospital.
Yeah, when I was in Italy visiting family in Calabria, in Cosenza, my grandfather came from a small village, and when I'm visiting these relatives, I remember one of them, I was like my father's cousin, and she took me to this little graveyard cemetery, and she's like, "Oh, these are my babies that I lost," and she would, and it was like it made me realize it was more common. But here people talk about it, but there, I mean, she was just it just made it seem like it was part of life.
We didn't have a chance to bury our babies or anything. I mean, they brought them in. They were about this big.
Right.
And you could barely tell. You could see a rib cage. It was
Yeah.
It was very hard to even know that, other than the fact that we knew that they were real children.
Right.
But they took them away and disposed of them.
Right.
A lot of people want the opportunity when they miscarry to name the baby, and then occasionally they'll have a ceremony, and they'll bury or they'll cremate the baby. So at least there's this ceremony. You get to go through these stages of grief, and understand and feel, let your feelings out. And in this particular video that they showed, the woman, she miscarried. She was 19 weeks pregnant, and the babies just died. They couldn't keep them alive. They couldn't keep them in vitro, so they died. And the couple brought their two daughters, who were already, maybe 8 and 10 years old. They looked like they were about 10-ish years old, to come in and actually have an opportunity to meet their little brother who wasn't born, Walter. And it was very touching, and and it was sad to see this event being used for political purposes to try to discredit Planned Parenthood. But it was actually disgusting that they would do that, but they did it.
And apparently, this couple who had the baby had agreed to it too.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a very private moment. I mean, they allowed it to be taped, and because I guess they wanted, to keep the tape so that the family would have it and would understand and would get a chance to, maybe let grandchildren, great-grandchildren, learn about what happened, learn a little of this sad moment in family history. But in that cheerful note, I think we're going to have to. I think we Progressive Soup. Emily Volpentesas, David Stevenson.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, and send us some ideas for shows. We have some great ideas, but could always use a few other ones.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Where did they show this video? On YouTube or something?
In front of Congress.
Oh, why is it going to be on like network television?
It's probably out there. It's probably out there on YouTube.
I can't think anyone would agree to do that.
They got it out for Planned Parenthood, and they don't pay any attention to the fact that Planned Parenthood, almost all of what they do are well woman exams, or at least exams to preventative type of medicine,
right.
breast exams, pelvic exams, all that kind of stuff that allow women to stay healthy and not get sick.
Right.
And another thing that they did in Congress was they showed this chart.
Right.
And the point they're trying to make with this chart was that Planned Parenthood's number of abortions are going up, and the number of breast exams are going down. But they took the figures and they showed them in a chart that even when they got to the end of the chart, the present day, the number of abortions was tiny, and the number of breast exams was huge number of breast exams.
Right.
But the chart shows them crossing paths to give the impression that Planned Parenthood is
right.
big in the abortion business, which they're not,
right,
and they don't
right.
get any federal funds for it,
right.
For doing that, because that's law.
Right.
And it makes it look like Planned Parenthood is doing fewer and fewer breast exams, which.
Right.
So they took a line that went
right.
just ever so slightly up, and they just tilted it like this, and then they took the line that was just ever so slightly down, and they jammed it down, and it's just pitiful to see
right.
people lie like this.
Right.
And just try to paint a picture, which they're not stupid. I mean, they can read, they can see numbers, they can understand, but they lie and skew numbers to make things look like they aren't, and it's very frustrating to see people that are basically good people
right.
lie through their teeth like that.
Yeah, but the whole thing with the video, that's a little weird, and making the already born children come and say goodbye to the.
It was a very touching, very private family
right.
moment,
But why
and it was
videotape it?
I think actually somebody in the hospital in the